This is a very short video just to recap on some of the material we've covered in the more introductory sessions on innovation. Just to recap, bring everything back to mind and a quick look at the meaning of innovation and what it's about. So, first of all, we encounter Schumpeter. He was one of the earliest writers in this area. And Schumpeter came up with a lot of interesting ideas about innovation, but certainly his biggest contribution was to alert the academic world to the importance of innovation and to the determinants of change and the implications of change. And by change, I mean new products or new ways of producing items. So anything associated with newness and the market. And we can trace a lot of the modern day thinking back to the early works of Schumpeter, the Austrian economist back in the 1930s. So we're really looking at a new product, something which has been developed and brought onto the market. Now, this has got all sorts of implications for the market structure. For example, if currently there is only one company producing a product and placing it on the market, then by definition that company is a monopoly. Well, if a second company or organization now develops a similar product which is in competition with the first one, then the market structure has changed. In that case, it's changed to a duopoly where there are two producers, and so on. If more and more companies enter the market with similar products, not exactly the same, perhaps slightly differentiated, it means that the market becomes more competitive. So clearly, the whole innovative process, this idea of bringing in something new, a variation on a product, does have market implications and will impact the customer in various ways. For a start, the customer will have greater choice. The customer will be able to look to the range of facilities a product offers. But also, there may be a competitive advantage to the customer because the prices may be bid down. The producers have to fight to gain the customer's attention and the customer's expenditure. So it may have implications for the price. It could be just a new process. It could be that companies are producing something in a particular way, and because of technological change or simply because somebody within the organization has developed a new way of doing it, of making this product, costs may fall, or the product may be of better quality because of a new process. Whatever it is, there is a welfare benefit to the customer. It may be perhaps through lower prices, or it may be through better quality product. It could be that the benefits are confined to the organization. Costs have been reduced and perhaps profits have been boosted as a consequence. Although you could argue that in itself will have implications for employment and for stability of employment, and the customers or the general population will benefit as a consequence. Could be that this whole idea of innovation simply opens up a new market. Perhaps customers suddenly have a new product which nobody had thought about, nobody had demanded, nobody had mentioned because they didn't know what it was, they didn't think about it. And because of innovation, there is a new product. Now, in today's world, we see this a lot. It's unlikely that somebody will have demanded a telephone that will have a camera built in, but somebody came up with the idea. No one presumably demanded a microwave oven before it was put on the market. You can imagine the scenario if someone went into a shop and asked for an oven that had no heating element, no obvious heating element, no fire, no gas, no whatever, but would heat up the food and heat it up very rapidly, and presumably the shop owner would think such a person was not feeling very well. There was simply no product on the market. But when it came out and customers saw what it could do, microwave ovens became very popular. So it opens up new markets. Innovation, the point is, brings new products to the market, and that extends the market. But it also is a new way of organizing the business. Businesses themselves may change because of technology within the business, perhaps more computer-controlled systems, different ways of monitoring quality and monitoring output, different ways of controlling stock and arranging for deliveries. And so there's a new way of working as a consequence of newness. In this case, we could trace it back to computer developments. There are new sources of supply as well, because the whole supply chain will have been affected. It's not just one part of the supply chain, but presumably all of the companies within the supply chain will have experienced some changes. And from raw materials to the logistics of getting the raw materials and the innovations that have been made in terms of shipping, delivery, distribution, on through the different outlets that use those raw materials into semi-processed goods and into final goods, and eventually for delivery out to the customers. All of this will mean new sources of supply, new companies coming in, filling niches or gaps in the market. Now, the mechanisms for innovation, well, novelty in product or service, offering something that no one else is offering. That's the big attraction. And when we think of innovation, that's normally what we think of. We think of something which is very modern, very different, very interesting. It's novelty. It creates a curiosity, an interest. And we look to the product to give us a good service, but also to take away perhaps some of the more difficult aspects of production, to take away the drudgery of production, to automate it, to have mechanisms within the organization and mechanized machinery, but also mechanisms in the context of organizational situations that lead to more efficiency and perhaps a better working environment. There are all sorts of novelty aspects we can imagine in this context. There also, of course, got novelty in the process, offering a new way of doing things. Perhaps previously companies did tasks in a particular way and perhaps had done the tasks like that for many years. Now there may be new ways of doing it as a consequence of innovation. If the product, the innovative product, is complex, then it's likely to create some sort of monopoly power for the producer. If it's complex, it means that the competitors will find it difficult to copy it. And the more complex it is, the safer it is. It doesn't mean it won't be eventually copied. Probably it will be. But at least for some period of time, whilst the competitors figure out how to copy it, the complexity of a product will offer its owner some sort of security and some sort of premium market share as a consequence. So complexity is something we think of also in the context of innovation. In fact, when we think of innovation nowadays, we often think of something quite complex, something difficult. In fact, it doesn't have to be, but that's maybe the product of the advances we've seen in technology over the last probably 20 or 30 years. Timing is also quite important. There is what's known as first mover advantage, or also fast follower advantage. First mover advantage means the first one to do it. The first one to do it will benefit. The first one who comes up with the idea of an electric motor car, when that happened, they have the advantage. They're doing it before the rest have even thought about it. Someone comes up with the idea of a new gadget for the kitchen, they will have the advantage until the other producers can bring out similar items. And we see this all the time. We see cordless vacuum cleaners. Not too sure who brought out the first one, but now there are many, and they're all starting to look a bit the same. And it'll continue like that until somebody brings up the next big innovation, the next big change in vacuum cleaners. So whoever brings it out first will have market advantage, first mover advantage, because that's the only one on the market. But then the others will start to copy it, and that competitive advantage will be dissipated. There's also the fast follower. The one who comes second, sometimes it could be argued, has got an even bigger advantage because all the hard work has been done by the first one. So the second one will learn from the first one's mistakes just by studying the product. So there'll be the fast follower advantage as well. Then extend competitive factors. For example, sometimes products that have been innovated will be seen as more robust, better quality. Better quality in the sense that a lot of the mistakes that were inherent in the previous generations of similar products have now been dealt with, and the producers are now making products which are more robust and more reliable. So that there's a competitive factor which is related not just to the price, but to the perceived quality and robustness of the product. And that takes us on to robust design. Innovation can offer a platform on which other variations can be built. For example, if a producer is making, let's say, a cordless vacuum cleaner which runs on a battery, then they will have mastered the battery technology, which may enable them to then make something which perhaps is similar but runs on a battery, perhaps a lawnmower without a cord. So they've stepped from a vacuum cleaner to a lawnmower. They could go further. They could make hand tools. So there's a whole plethora of products which would, in a sense, be reliant upon the same type of technology, battery technology. And reconfiguring the parts, building more effective business networks, which means having developed some sort of innovative product, then business networks will be established to supply components, to supply different inputs that the organization will need for this innovative product, this new product. But in so doing, the business networks themselves are developed, and they will become important perhaps for future innovations, because the business networks themselves are learning from dealing with this innovative product. So these are some ideas about innovation, and it's covered in a different video as well, but just to drive home the ideas and a second way of looking perhaps at the same ideas. But let's just leave it at that and say that's an introduction to innovation, and just bearing in mind that all flowed essentially from the work of Schumpeter back in the 1930s. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.